to go ahead and record. There was a point where I was like, oh crap, I have no one else to call, right? And so it was like, well, I got to quit and get another job, or I can like restart and remake my list, right? And my manager told me that. He's like, those are your two options. Like you get another job, or you actually sit down, put pen to paper and redo it, right? And so I was like, all right. And I'm so glad that he helped me do this. And I'm going to walk you guys through what I did with him, all right? Kind of pass it forward. But him doing that with me allowed me to have a record-breaking November, December, when I hadn't done much in September, October. And I won a scholarship that fall. I was number 14 in the nation that fall. And it was mostly November, December sales, okay? And so I'm sharing this because at this point, like literally at this point, back in 2003, I was almost on my way out of the business, you know? And if it wasn't for this exercise I'm going to do with you guys and my manager doing this with me, I don't know if I'd be sitting here in front of you guys right now. All right. So I want you guys to grab pen and paper. If you rather type, you can type on your computer, no problem. But I'm going to walk you guys through a series of different things. The first thing we're going to start with, the first thing that my manager did with me is we went through and made a list of everyone that I just haven't seen yet, okay? And so I'm gonna give you thought joggers. Some of these thought joggers you've heard before in training, but I want you guys to write down who are people from that category or those people that you still haven't gotten to see, whether you don't have their number, whether they haven't picked up, whether they asked you to call back, whether they had to reschedule. Everyone with me? You haven't seen them yet. You're gonna write them down if you haven't seen them yet, okay? And so I'm going to start there. So I'm going to start with that as the first thing that we do. So everybody, let's start writing. And I'm going to give you some thought joggers here to help with this. And I'm going to go pretty fast. But again, what I want you to do is I want to make sure you guys write down anyone that you haven't seen from that group yet. Okay. So let's start with close friends. All right. What close friends' parents have you not seen yet? Write them down. All right. So what close friends' parents have you not seen yet? Let's write them down. Your best friends, any of them that their parents were busy, they told you to call them back, they needed to reschedule, or you just hadn't gotten their phone number yet. All right. Think about friends, like what friends have, like the family has an only child, or friends of the family that have like tons of kids. Like who have you not seen of your teachers, right? And so I knew there were teachers of mine, Dr. Woodfin from my university, one of my other professors that I hadn't gotten a time to see them yet, but I knew I wanted to book an appointment with them, you know? So write down, and what are any teachers? And we can show you, don't not write them because you're like, oh, I don't know how to get their number. I'm gonna show you how to get their phone numbers, okay? But go ahead and write down, like what teachers have you not seen yet that you know you could see, all right? They liked you, you like them, or you just, you know, like you're just gonna ask them because like they're not a jerk. and by the way, teachers, like they love seeing, for those of you who are students, like they love seeing the progress, they love seeing your development. They became teachers because they want to help students and young people like develop, right? And really open doors for themselves. Write down, who do you like, who of your friends do you know that wants to be a teacher, who's studying education and you haven't seen their parents yet? Who do you know has twins or is a twin? Have you seen them yet? Have you seen their parents yet? Do you have any brothers or sisters or stepbrothers or sisters that are over 30 that you haven't seen yet, right? Jarrell, two of his older brothers and their wives, you know, got some nice sets from him. Think about, who do you know that's in sales or wants to be that you haven't seen yet? Jot them down. Who do you know that owns their own business or wants to? Again, you're writing down every person you haven't seen yet in these categories. We're making a new list, okay? Write them down. If you don't know their full name, like describe them, red hair or big head or whatever, all right? Who do you know who's in a soccer league, all right? Soccer, baseball, football. Think about any sports you played or wanted to play. What coaches have you not seen? Maybe it's your kids' parents, your kids' friends' parents, right? Like, who are your kids' best friends, kids play sports with? So whether it's your children or it's you, same deal. Think about any of the parents, the soccer moms, the baseball moms, the football moms, the Little League moms, the Boy Scout moms, the Girl Scout moms, like who have you not seen yet? Jot them down. Who do you know that owns their own business? Guys, this is going to be a big time this next month with holiday and business gifting. Huge. We'll talk about that. Who do you know that works from home? All right. Jot them down. Who do you know that wants to own their own business? Oh, we want to mute this. Hi, y'all. I think we got it all. All right. Who do you know that, you're good. Who do you know that, you know, again, all the Little League parents that you haven't seen, who do you know who's involved with the PTA? Any of your friends' parents, friends, kids' parents that are involved in the PTA that you haven't seen yet? Who do you know that you could see from your church? Maybe they're in the church choir, they're a deacon, they work in the youth group. Anyone from church you haven't seen yet? Barbara Bourgeois, her husband was one of the deacons with my dad. They had Cutco since 1952, by the way. It was so cool. And their daughter, Barbara Bourgeois, who worked in my youth group, she had her Cutco since 1976. My youth pastor, Coach V, actually sold Cutco in the 80s to pay his way through Liberty University. It was really cool to see him and get a testimonial. And so just think about, like, who are people from your church you haven't seen yet? Jot them down. Who do you know that likes to sing? Do you know people from your former church? Who do you know who's super ambitious? Who do you know who has life insurance, car insurance, who has hobbies? Who do you know who bowls? Maybe they're in a bowling league. If you go to church, have you seen your minister? Have you seen your deacon? Have you seen your priest? Have you seen your rabbi? You know, I saw my pastor and his wife, and obviously they know everyone in the church. I got great leads from them. All right. And they bought like a piece, but I got great referrals, you know? And so I wanted to see them because I knew, obviously they knew everyone in the church. So think about, and if you don't go to church, who do you know that goes to church, right? Because if they can recommend you to that person, like that's a whole new list of people that you have. Who do you know who's most trustworthy? Who do you know who's a doctor or wants to be a doctor? Write them down. Have you seen your doctors? Our physical therapist of my mom's, him and his wife, Gary, they bought a homemaker set. Dr. Richard, my dentist, him and his wife, we did a demo. They bought a homemaker and they gave me over 30 referrals. We saw our pediatrician, you know, and so think about different doctors that your family has, or if you go to the same doctor, you know, have you talked to them to see if they'd be willing to help you do a quick appointment? Your dentist, think about those. All right. Have you seen your chiropractor or your parents' chiropractor? All right. Our chiropractor, Spencer, he loves Cutco. He's like, oh, I know Cutco, you know? And so definitely great people to go see. Who do you know who goes to therapy? Who do you know that practices therapy? Who do you know who has a great smile? And just thought jog and put people down, or again, anyone you haven't seen yet. Who do you know that works nights? Who do you know that works swing shifts? Who do you know that might have a church directory? Who do you know who's a single parent? Who do you know who's a new baby? Who do you call for help? Who do you know that loves to read? Again, write them down. Have you seen them? Who do you know who rides the bus or train to work? Who do you know who's the handsomest dad or husband you know? Who's the prettiest mom or wife you know? Who do you know who's a scuba diver? How about old babysitters? Is there anyone you used to babysit for? All right, I got some great appointments with people that I used to babysit their kids. I also saw our old babysitter, Marlene. She used to babysit us when we were little. And so think about, she was so excited to catch up and see. I hadn't seen her since I was 12. And I went and saw her 7 years later to do an appointment with her. So think about babysitters that you've had, people you've babysat, people have babysit your kids, you know, have you seen them or their parents? Who do you know who's a nanny? Who do you know who's a smoker? Who do you know who quit smoking? All right, jot them down. Who do you know is a college professor? Any previous teachers from high school? I know I mentioned it, but that's just a huge group of people. Who do you know who plays softball? Who do you know who coaches softball? Who do you know who's an engineer? Who do you know that wants to be one? Who do you know who drives a truck? All right, jot them down. Anyone that comes to mind you haven't seen in these categories. Parents, neighbors. Maybe you put front neighbor, back neighbor, side neighbor. Like, which neighbors have you not seen yet? I didn't know my parents' neighbors because they moved when I was in college. But the front neighbors, Dusty and his wife, I met them. They bought $300 from me. They gave me great referrals. The back neighbor bought a homemaker from me, got some great referrals. 2 doors down in the front, they bought an all knife set from me, and another one did a custom set. So have you seen all of your family's neighbors? My dad has neighbors right now I don't know that I could go see, you know? And so think about parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, neighbors, jot them down. And you could talk to them. Who do you know who's a secretary? All right. Do you know the secretary of your parents' work? I went to take lunch to my dad and I got an appointment with the secretary at where he worked, the healthcare facility. And I got an appointment with his boss and his wife and with one of the other people. I went to go see my mom at the nursing home she worked at, and Idania worked the front desk. She was a secretary. I saw her and her husband. They bought a galley, gave me great referrals. I saw my mom's boss, Carrie. She actually had Cutco for 16 years and added more to her collection and gave me a great testimonial and great referrals. I saw the guy who worked next to my mom's desk, who they were not friends, but him and his wife bought a homemaker and gave me over 30 referrals. So think about that. How about your spouse's family if you're married? All right. If not, think about any in-laws or step parents or ex-step parents, anyone that married in or out of the family. Think about any of your spouse's friends or your parents' friends. Mom and dad would go to a school reunion, or if you're going to, like, who would you see there? Who are people that you would see at the reunion? Did you write down people from your former neighborhood or where you grew up if you live somewhere else younger? Tyler Tarr went to his old neighborhood that he grew up in, and he moved out of that neighborhood when he was like 13 or 14, but he went back when he started this job and went and saw some of the neighbors, and he got some great appointments because he grew up in that neighborhood and a lot of the families still lived there. And so he went and knocked on their door. He's like, hey, I don't know if you remember me. I'm Tyler Tarr. I used to live there. And they were like, oh my gosh, you know, and he got like 5 appointments like that, just talking to some old neighbors. So think about that. All right. Who do you know that works in a factory? All right. Who do you know who's a lawyer or wants to be a lawyer? Who do you know who works in a spa or health club? Who sends your family Christmas cards or holiday cards? Hanukkah, New Year's, like who sends cards? Who do you know who works in a daycare? Maybe they own a daycare. Think about your kids' childhood playmates. All right, or yours. All right. Who else? Who else do you have there? Who do you know that plays guitar? Who drives an expensive car? Who drives a small car? Who has the best beard or mustache? Who do you know that takes a lot of vacations? Who do you vacation with? Who do you know who has a deep voice? Who do you know who's a boss? Maybe one of your old bosses. I saw my old boss at the restaurant I used to work at. Actually, Spencer met him this past year, all right? And Ronnie and his wife actually had Cutco, and they bought more Cutco, and they referred me to their chef who loved Cutco. He had Cutco too, and you know, so think about old bosses. I saw my old boss with like a kids camps that we used to do, you know, and got some great referrals and a small sale there. So think about your parents' maid of honor, best man. Think about yours. Who do you know who works in a restaurant? Who do you know who's an electrician, a plumber, drives a van, works in a furniture store, clothing store, dry cleaners? How about a barber or beautician? My mom's old beautician, Teresa, she used to come to our house and cut our hair. She still cuts my mom's hair in Puerto Rico. 30 years later, all right? But they know tons of people, barbers, beauticians, nail, hair, like they know tons of people, all right? They've got all their clients. Who do you know is a pharmacist or wants to be a pharmacist? Who do you know that owns a grocery store, all right? Or is a manager at a grocery store? Who do you know is a mechanic? I love mechanics. Mechanics love great tools. Have you seen every mechanic you know? Who do you know that loves to work out? Have you seen all your brother or sister's friends? Write down Josh's best friend, Natalie's best friend. Like my brother's best friend, his mom bought like $200 for me, but she gave me 20 referrals. My sister Michelle, her best friend, her mom bought a complete set from me, by the way, and got me some great referrals. My sister Michelle's boyfriend at the time, his parents had Cutco, and they added about $400 or $500, and they gave me some great referrals. You know, my ex-boyfriend's parents, I saw them. They actually had Cutco. They added some more and gave me some great referrals and a testimonial. And so think about your brother, sisters, or cousins' friends, all right? Even if you don't know their name or the parents' names, like write them down. All right, who do you know likes to fish? Have you seen all your parents' best friends? Who do you know that just bought a new car, is a postman, is an apartment manager? Who do you know that goes to the YMCA? Who do you know who's super enthusiastic? I mentioned this already, but who do you know that is in Boy Scout parents, Girl Scout parents, Cub Scouts parents? Who do you know that likes saving? They're super thrifty. Who do you know that likes to have the best of everything? Who do you know who's super successful? Who do you know that works 2 jobs? Who do you know that does odd jobs? Who do you know who's a carpenter? Who do you know who's in management or wants to be? Again, jot them down. Who do you know that just got married? You haven't seen them yet, jot them down. Who do you know who's super attractive? Have you seen all your aunts, uncles, cousins over 30? Jot them down if you haven't, please. Who do you know who has a great personality? Keep it riding. Who do you know who goes skiing? Who do you know who likes to golf? Who do you know who plays cards? Who do you know who's a waitress? Who do you know who eats out a lot? Who do you know who's super optimistic? Who do you know who has a nice stereo system? Who's a principal? Have you seen your principal? Have you seen your old principal? My old principal bought a complete set from my sister's best friend because I didn't go see him. I was so mad. Who do you know who works at the post office? Who do you know who works in the police department? Who do you know who works in the fire department? By the way, police officers, fire departments, like just any kind of ambulance help, like paramedics, they work funky shifts. And so you'll find a lot of them home during the day as well, all right? Because they'll work like shifts, 12 hours or whatever, or longer, and they'll be on for a day and off for 2 or 3 days, and then on for 2 days, and then off for 3 days. So they have funky shifts. Same with hospital workers, you know, like nurses or doctors in like an ER, they work funky shifts as well. So you'll catch a lot during the day. So who do you know who's a nurse? Who do you know who works in a hospital? Who lives in your old house if you've ever moved? Who do you know who's a bartender? Have you put any old coworkers? Have you seen their parents? Who do you know who does photography, wedding photography? Who do you know who's a swimmer? Who do you know who's in tennis? Who do you know that lifts weights? Who do you know who's a personal driver, a chauffeur, Uber or Lyft? Who do you know that talks a lot? Who do you know who's a pilot or wants to be? Who do you know who's bilingual or trilingual or more? Who do you know from out of state? All right, and I could keep going, all right, but I want to pause real quick. Please, just so I know, raise your hand if you have a list right now of at least 10 more people that you haven't seen yet. Raise your hand. Raise your hand if you have at least 10. Keep your hand up if you have 20 or more. If you have 20 or more. Anyone have 30 or more? 30 or more, all right. And I'm going to give you guys some other things right now to help with this, okay? And so I'm going to share my screen so you guys can check this out. Look here as I go through so you guys can see these different things. But this is a I have a folder here, and this is all stuff that I acquired through the years. Some of the stuff right now that I'm going to share that my manager did with me. So that was the first step, is we just went through, okay, who do I have that I hadn't seen yet, right? Like that I just off the top of my head. But then we sat down and walked through this right here. And so this was huge. And so some of this stuff is a little bit outdated, but some of the stuff you can still do, all right? And this was the goal of how do you get 300 to 500 new people to see, okay? And so the purpose of this is to really help start this off. And this is like whenever you're going into a big competition, or like I think about the right now, the holiday season, and just having tons of people that you can call. This helps creating your attack list, okay? And again, not judging, not whatever, but just going through all of this. So I'm going to show you guys this right here. And so the first thing is go back to school. Cool. You guys can go on Google search and you can go to your high school website, okay? And when you're on the website, you can look at faculty and staff page. Casey Downing did this. He got 4 appointments with teachers doing this by just sending them an email because he actually wasn't able to get their phone number. So he did step 2, which is send them an email. So step 1, you guys can just go write down the first and last name of every teacher that you knew. And then you can go to whitepages.com. You can put their name and city and the city your high school is located in. And then, you can add, it has examples here, like there's literally screenshots. You can write down their phone numbers. A lot of people don't have their numbers listed, right? And so don't worry, you can send them an email. But the ones without their phone numbers listed, and you can't find, go back to the school's website and get their email address. Cool. Because you can send them an email like this and you can personalize it, right? But like Casey was like, hey, Casey Downing, student from, 2000, important question, please respond ASAP. And he was like, hey, I don't know if you remember me. And for him, he was a class clown and he was like, I'm the funny guy or whatever. But you can personalize it. He's like, oh, I was in blank class. He's like, I was trying to get in touch with you because I had a quick question about something I'm working on towards a scholarship. I was hoping you could help me out. What's the best number to reach you at and a good time of day to call? Looking forward to talking to you, right? Now, emails, they might not check their email for a couple days, right? And so this isn't going to be instant. So you want to check them. But I know he did this and he sent it to like 10 teachers and he ended up getting 4 appointments from just doing that. Cool. So that's one thing you guys can do. Step 3, finding your yearbook, right? If you don't have a yearbook, reach out to a friend that graduated around the same time and use theirs. And again, write down all your friends or acquaintances or teachers or guidance counselors. Go to whitepages.com, type in their name and city, look for the unshaded name, and then, write down their phone numbers on your new list, okay? And I'll share this document so you guys have this as well. The second thing is be a friendly neighbor, all right? So ask your parents, like if they have a directory, a neighborhood directory. Now there's something called, oh crap, I just forgot. There's an app, Nextdoor app. And so on Nextdoor, you can actually even post, like most neighborhoods have the Nextdoor app, and you can post like, oh, like I live in blank, and you can put a post. We can help you with that post. You can ask Spencer, ask myself, but you can put something on your Nextdoor app in your neighborhood. But do you have a neighborhood directory? Some do, some don't. If not, if your neighborhood doesn't have an actual directory, no problem. Step 2, you can go to whitepages.com/neighbors. You type in your address without the house number, and then all your neighbors pop up. Cool. And so any phone numbers you have, you can write them down. And then when you call them, you can say, oh, I actually live at 9227, and I was just seeing if some of the nice neighbors could help me out with something I'm doing. And they're like, oh, okay. And so you would use the acquaintance approach, with them. And so, oh, I don't know if we've met before. Like I live at 9227, or I live off Villa Court Drive, and like just sharing your street if you don't want to share your house. But doing that. So write down their phone number on your list. You can do that with nearby streets. You can do that with your grandparents, aunts and uncles. You can do that there. Cool. The third thing is, meet your parents. All right. And so create a LinkedIn account. And so before, for me, it was like really utilizing Facebook and stuff, right? Like LinkedIn is so huge and there's so many professionals on that. If you guys don't have a LinkedIn, you want to make one. Okay. Find your parents' page. At the top of the page, it says, next to send a message, it shows how many connections. You guys see the little red box there all the way to the right? And so it shows like how many quote unquote friends they have on there, right? Like connections on LinkedIn. And so usually it's a couple hundred. And so you click on the link for connections and it shows you all the people that they're connected to. So you can write down their connections, first and last names. You can ask parents for their names and numbers. If your parents don't have some of their numbers or they don't personally know them, that's fine. You can go on LinkedIn. You can click their contact info. And you can even message them, by the way, through LinkedIn. And so it lets you guys can message on there, and whenever they see it, they see it. So again, this isn't an instant thing, but it does help create with you guys networking. So if their contact info isn't listed, go back to White Pages and then look at them from there. All right. Step 2, while you're on LinkedIn, look up any teachers whose numbers you couldn't find. All right. Step 4 was looking at just the groups that you're in, right? So looking at your resume, anything with past experience, activities, all right? And so think about what are things you did in your past. Did you do volunteering, anything with church directors, supervisors, who worked with your previous jobs, who helped you apply to college or the scholarship that you earned? Write down all the people you can think of and you can look them up on whitepages.com, all right? Also Facebook. Facebook is huge. The group on Facebook, by the way, the age group that most uses Facebook is 30 to 60. Like literally our target market is who uses Facebook the most. Click on your profile, all right? And if you guys go on Facebook, all right, and you go on here, you're able to, let me go on my profile, all right? You can see your friends. And so here I have however many, 3,799 friends, right? There's a lot of people can message. You can look up your parents, right? Like my dad doesn't have that many, but there's my dad. And so my dad has 208 friends though, all right? And so 42 are mutual. So he has 160 something people that are not even friends of mine that I could message or reach out to. And I'm going to show you guys how to reach out to those people. All right. But that's something that you guys can do is just go in here and you're like, okay, like let's say I want to check my grandpa's friends. I'm like, all right, let's see what grandpa's got going on here. So grandpa has 41 friends. Cool. But that's 30 more people that I could reach out to and see if they be. I'm like, oh, it's Herman Vasquez's granddaughter. And they're like, oh my gosh, and I can get people there. I could go to my mom's and check my mom out. I'm like, all right, how many people does my mom have? My mom has 169 friends. Only 21 are mutual. So I had no idea my mom's cover was me and Spencer. That's funny. But my mom has 140, 8 people that are not friends of mine that I could reach out to on Facebook. I could find my aunt and I'm like, all right, let's see what my aunt has. My aunt has 507 friends. 26 are mutual. So guys, that's over 400 something people I can message of my aunt's friends and say, hey, I don't know if we've had a chance to meet. I'm Rosillo's niece, Cathy. And they'd be like, oh my gosh, right? And I could get people from that. I could check my other aunt. So do you guys get where I'm going here? There's a lot of contacts on Facebook and you can send them a message, and we have a message if you're a student, if you're not a student, whatever, but like there's lots of people on there. So you can send them a message and let them know, message them on Facebook, like any of your friends to get parents' numbers, or I'm going to show you guys another message that you can just send out. You can basically use like the email that was before, but I'll show you guys some other stuff here. Okay. So anyway, look up parents on White Pages, check all that out, and then network in your organization. So again, what church, clubs, volunteer groups, bands, sports, fraternities, sororities, all these organizations, church, parish, all this, write down names and numbers, look them up. And then again, if you can't find them, this shows you a sample email that you guys can send. And you're like, hey, I don't know if you remember me. I was in blank with you. I was trying to get in touch with you because I had a quick question about something I'm working on towards a scholarship. If you're not in school, you always replace the word scholarship with contest. Cool. You're like, oh, something I'm working on towards a contest. I was hoping you could help me out with. What's the best phone number to reach you at and a good time to call? Look forward to talking to you. All right. So this right here, let me pause this. I want to hear what are some of the ideas that came up for you guys going through that. What are some of the ideas? Everyone good there? We brainstormed, we went through that, and I'm going to give you guys that. The next thing I want to show you guys as we're going through, all right, and you can pull up here, is the next thing is let me go here. ways to collect more numbers. Okay. So when I was doing my restart, just grab a chair right here. When I was doing my restart, I had to get phone numbers, right? Again, so went through and found directories like from my old church directory. I didn't have a neighborhood one. I had some old club ones and my volleyball club. If you guys have Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, FFA, and then sports leagues, whether it's the parents in a sports league or the kids in a sports league. Cool. So going through those. But one of the things that my manager walked me through is actually going back to people I had seen that I didn't get. Who here saw someone and you didn't get referrals like you could have from them? Like the first people, like I didn't really know how to like ask for referrals that great, nor did I understand the importance of it, you know? So like my aunt gave me like 7, right? My aunt could give me 100. My aunt, you guys saw my aunt could give me 400, like from her social media. So going back to those, you know, parents, aunt, grandma, best friends, parents, past customers. And what I did is I set up a time and I said, hey, I'd love to set up a time to stop by, or to, you could say like to have a quick Zoom date. I'd love to set up a time to share with you a little bit more about what I'm doing. And like, you know, and they're like, oh, okay. So like set up a coffee date or go by their house or whatever. And so what my manager walked me through, he's like, basically you want to thank them so much for their help so far. Let them know, oh, I was able to hit my first promotion my first week. You know, I did this. I'm like, oh, cool. And sharing with them, and then being honest and say that when you first started, be like, I didn't really understand the sponsorship and the role that it plays in our business. And so Auntie, I know I shared some of this before, but I'm really excited about the opportunities that this company has, right? And then resharing whatever you're excited about, right? So for me, I was super excited about the chance to advance management, sales, internship opportunities. I was really excited about getting a scholarship for school. I was super excited about letters of recommendation, getting into the leadership academy, you know, and then I was really excited because I wanted to have my own business one day to be able to do, you know, do the branch internship, which is where you get to run your own mini franchise, you know, the next year and learn the startup process. And so, you know, I told her, I'm like, oh, Dia, I need your help. I'm like, when I first started, I didn't really understand this myself. So it was really hard for me to explain. But here's how the sponsorship works, right? And just re-walking through it with them and offering them free stuff, okay? And I'm going to share with you guys, and we'll post in here, like it'll be the last thing I show you in a second, the VIA recommendations approach. And there's so many like templates and stuff you guys can use, because there's tons of ways to get more numbers. It's just sitting down to like send messages, get organized, you know. And my manager was like, Kat, you do this or you find another job, you know. And so I sat and I did this. I worked on this for a week. I put in like 1 hour a day, sending messages, working on stuff, checking emails, whatever. 1 hour a day for a week. And I made a massive list. And that's what helped me crush November and December, you know. Message friends to get parents' numbers. I already showed you guys that. And then these are a couple different messages that I used. So this is a Facebook message. I'm like, oh, hey, it's so-and-so's daughter or son. You know, I'm like, the company I'm working for offers scholarship, help me pay for school, yada, yada, yada. And so it has a message there. This is an email or a social message, right, that you guys can send. And it's like, hey, I don't know if you remember me. I went to school blank. I was in your blank class, right? And you guys saw some of that in the other one. But this is stuff that I personally use to help build that list, all right? And lastly, what I want to cover is just the power of, again, Facebook, and just like what you guys can do through Facebook, because I'm going to tell you right now, and let me share this with you guys so you guys have this. Again, if we can put this in the in our group me, in our manager group me, in our warriors group me, Robbie, if you can put that in there for me, hon. And then the last thing is the VIA recommendations approach. Okay. And so this is, if you're not using this to ask for recommendations, this is what you want to use to ask for recommendations, by the way, because it has the sponsorship, it has everything in there. Okay. So if I'm meeting with you, And I'm like, Uncle Emmanuel, I'm like, how did you like my demo? How'd you like the written? Like, oh, you did great, honey. You know, and we're trying. I'm like, awesome. I'm like, thank you so much for taking out to do the appointment. Like, I know there's a million other things you could probably have done right now. So I really appreciate it. Always making them feel so good for just doing the demo, right? Whether they bought or not, they need to feel good that they took time out to help you. Got it? Because psychologically, they're not going to refer anybody else if they don't feel good. And they usually don't feel good if they didn't buy. They're like, oh, I'm so sorry, honey. I wish I could have helped you. You know, like they don't feel good. Like, why would they recommend you to a friend of theirs they think they're not going to buy? So they can feel bad too that they couldn't buy. Like they're not going to do that. So you want to make them feel freaking awesome about helping you. So, you know, and we have visuals where I had them fill stuff out. You know, they fill out the question in the app, and I'm like, all right, so Auntie, do you remember the $150 sponsorship I was telling you about earlier, right? And if you guys don't, you want to make sure you mention that when you share your goals. Be like, I actually have a way where you can sponsor me and I could actually win a $150 reward. I'll tell you about that later. So I always kind of plug that. It's not in your manual. It's something I talk about in advanced training. But I always like to plug that with my customers. And I'm like, all right, well, Auntie, there's one more important part. Here's where you can really help me out. I get paid every time I show Cutco, and I can only show it to people I've been personally recommended to. I'm trying to keep my schedule full in order to hit my goals. So what I need you to do is if you can go through your contacts and just jot down the first, you know, 200 to 300 names that come to mind. And they're like, what? Like, I'm just kidding. 20 to 30 is fine. And actually the app you downloaded, Auntie, is designed to be a huge time saver for the most of us on this part. And so it actually allows you to send me introductions straight through the app. So anyone you recommend automatically syncs with my phone. So that way you don't have to take the time to like type them out and email them to me or, you know, handwrite them. So it's much easier. And of course, I'm only going to be able to see the contacts that you send me. Cool. So on the bottom of the screen, Auntie, you see where it says share, click that, click OK to share contacts. And then now it'll let you select those 200 to 300 people you want to refer me to. Cool. All right. And so just have fun with them. Like the more fun you can have during this, like a lot of times when people ask for Rex, they're like, oh, so Auntie, you know, like, and you get all weird. Like, don't get weird. This is free. They don't have to, this is a free way to help you out. So anyway, I'm like, so Auntie, on this part, I'd love for you to go ahead and check off anyone you think would be just nice enough to see me. Not necessarily people you think would buy, just people who are nice like you. And it's okay if they live out of state since I can do appointments online anyway. It's important to remind them of that because the people who are out of town, it's like out of sight, out of mind, right? They might not think about them. They're just thinking about who they see regularly in the day, their neighbors, their coworkers, whatever. So you always want to bring that up because I'm like, oh, my sister's in New York. Okay, cool. Yeah, let me refer her, right? So you want to bring that up. And then I'm like, okay, so Eric, here's how the sponsorship works. Every 50 sponsors I get, the company gives me $150 worth of Cutco that I can use to pay for books and whatnot at school. Every 10 names someone gives me, like every 10 names someone submits gives me a sponsor. So if you submit 100 names, you would be a 10-time sponsor. Cool. If you submit 50 names, you'd be a 5-time sponsor. 20 names, 2 times. And even if you only get to 10, how did I say that? Even if you only get to 10, all right? It's a psychological thing. I'm like, you still become a sponsor. And when I get all 50 sponsors, I get the $150 reward. They're like, oh, I'm like, so check out as many nice moms as you can and just let me know when you're finished before you click the share button, because I actually have a way you can get some free Cutco. They're like, oh, all right. People love free Cutco. So are you bringing that up? Because it does make a difference, okay? And I'm like, so Auntie, take as much time as you need on this because it's the most important part of the meeting for me. And I don't mind waiting and I have to fill my forms out anyway. Cool, so thank you so much for the help. I really appreciate it. And so after the customer is like, oh, sweetie, I'm done, you know, or whatever. And I'm like, okay, awesome. I'm like, Auntie, real quick, before you hit the share button, can you tell me how many names that you selected on the blue button? Okay, awesome. I'm like, so I'm like only 3 away from another sponsor. I'm like, do you think there's any way you could think of 3 more to check off that might be willing to see me so that you can be a double sponsor of mine or whatever the next level is, right? So encouraging them to get to the next level. You guys can use free stuff. Vegetable peeler. You guys can buy peelers for $8 and just give it to them. So the $40-something peeler, we can buy them for $8. It's called a CGA peeler, customer generated appointment peeler. Cool. So that's something that my manager told me about, and I bought peelers to give to customers. And you're like, so I'm not looking for anyone you think would buy, just people nice like you that would listen. And then you brainstorm. You're like, oh, who do you know that loves to cook? Who do you know loves to have a big family? Who do you know likes to entertain? Who likes nice things? You know, and just like whatever you want, right? If you want more daytimers, if you want more married. When I started, I wanted more married people in houses because I was in an apartment and a lot of my family was divorced, you know, and I'm like, oh, who do you know is married and lives in a house, you know? And so I'd ask that. So ask for what you want. All right. I'm not going to go through all these recommendation tips, although you guys can read this. I'm going to, again, share this with you guys so that you all have this. Heads up text helps you get a lot more appointments. All right. Taking notes on their best 5, knowing who their best 5 people, huge. How to get more references in the future. You guys have handling recommendations, but here's what I wanted to get to, the Facebook. Cool. If you're not doing this, you're losing a lot of money. Every time when you guys finish a presentation, you want to say this. All right. So Eric, go ahead and read this out loud for me.
Mrs. Jones, I have found that a lot of people have more friends on Facebook than in their phones. So I am trying to work on my social media marketing and advertising too. So I would love if you wouldn't mind putting a post up for me, introducing me to your Facebook friends. I will send you a template of what you would post, and I will also send you a photo of me. So all you will do is post a photo and a template as an introduction of me, and it will say if anyone is willing to help me out, they can like or comment below. Would you be nice enough to put that post up?
Yeah.
It would mean the world to me. Great. I will send you a friend request now and send you the template and the photo. You can also tag me in the post with the @ since we are friends now.
Yes, we are.
By the way, if there's a time where I am able to, would it be okay if I sent a message to some of your Facebook friends introducing myself to them? Would that be all right?
Mm-hmm. All right. And again, you want to practice it so that you feel really comfortable, but you're like, oh, you know, I found so many people have so many more friends on Facebook than they do in their phones. And they're like, oh yeah. I'm like, and I'm working on my social media, my advertising. I'm like, I'd love if you wouldn't mind putting a post up on Facebook, just introducing me to your Facebook friends, you know, just be like, I'm like, I can send you a template, Eric. I'll just say like, oh, my niece is working with Cutco. She gets paid, you know, like, and just tell them a little bit about me just to see if they'd be willing to help. I'm like, is that cool? And I can send you a template. And they're like, oh yeah, no problem. And then I'm like, hey, is it okay if I'm able to, is it okay if I send a message to some of your friends introducing myself to them on Facebook? Is that cool? Like, yeah. All right. And so now, like with your family, like your family people, you can just message your family friends. You're just like, hey, it's me, so-and-so's daughter, son, nephew, whatever, right? But with your customers, their friends don't know you. So that's where you want to ask permission. And once you do, like, it makes it really easy. And so this gives you an example right here. Here's a Facebook post you can share that you can give them an example with a picture of you. And it says, hey, just started working with Cutco. You can adjust this. There's a student example. There's a non-student example, but just stuff you can send. And then here's the big thing is the private messages, right? So if they're like, oh yeah, that's fine, you can message my friend, you know, like no problem. Here's a template. And so this is if you're a student, this is if you're a non-student. And so you're just like, hey, I don't know if we've met before. I'm Amy Solomon's daughter or sister or whoever. I'm working with company to learn the basics of entrepreneurship, improve my communication skills, assignments to set up appointments. And you just like tell them and you have that. Cool. So that's huge. If you have people that you want to post for you and you never asked them to before, it tells you what to say. If you are messaging like people you've seen already that you didn't ask for permission to send private messages, this tells you what to do to ask them. Cool. But moving forward, you always want to ask for a Facebook post at the end of the demo and permission to send messages. Send them a picture of you. Make sure you're Facebook friends so they can tag you and comment thanking them for their support. If you don't have a Facebook, do not leave tonight without making one. And at the end of the week, thank everyone who helped you for that week and tag your customers. It helps you start building relationships. And guys, especially as we're going into the holiday season, you're gonna get so many more things, so many more appointments, so many more referrals by doing that, all right?